Feels like I was made for this.
We are now on air. Time for a total takeover.
It's finally here. Welcome to a new episode.
It's about to go down.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's yours truly, Dan Adams, a.k.a. the Soulful Conservative, the DA, and the Prosecutor, coming to you live once again with another edition of the Dan Adams Show. It is February 8th, 2022. I want to go ahead and get right into it. It's going to kind of be an abbreviated version for tonight. You know, circumstances that be is making that happen this evening, but I'm still going to give you the best of yours truly. The first clip up to bat for this evening is... And I hate to even bring this to you because it's just, these people will never learn. This guy will never learn. Mr. Blackface, Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, and he was caught coming out of a, I guess, not surprise. What's the word I'm looking for? Not abrupt, but what's the word I'm looking for? Unscheduled, thank you. Meeting with the Parliament. Canada. I think that's where they are, right? It's like Congress, the Parliament, something like that. Who knows with Canada? But this is what this idiot had to say in regards to the Freedom Convoy, just sweeping across the entire vastness of Canada.
I think one of the things we all understand is just how frustrated everyone is. We're all frustrated. We're all sick and tired of restrictions, of mandates, of having to make sacrifices, of not being able to do the things we love. It's been 2 years, and it's really, really tiring for all of us. This government has been focused every step of the way on following the best science, following the best public health advice to keep as many people safe as possible. And quite frankly, it's worked. We've seen the curves lower in Canada than elsewhere. We've seen lower death rates. We've seen quicker economic recovery because Canadians stepped up, because Canadians got vaccinated. And I can understand frustrations with mandates, but mandates are the way to avoid further restrictions or having to be restricted. As people get vaccinated, as Canadians have gotten vaccinated, we've been able to get through things. And this team is going to stay focused on doing exactly that.
Est-ce qu'il pourra rester dans votre caucus si vous accuse d'avoir politisé la vaccination?
Now, you see, he ran away, couldn't answer questions, didn't step up like the leader of our country should, and just didn't want to answer any questions. But I have many questions after this clip I'm about to play, and this is CNN and their favorite, I guess if you want to call her, I believe she's a doctor, don't know if she's a scientist or has a type of expertise in epidemiology or virology or things of that nature, but this is what she had to say in regards to masks and what now, ladies and gentlemen, we all should be doing in regards to masks.
Do you agree with the move?
I do. There was and is a time and place for pandemic restrictions, but when they were put in, it was always with the understanding that they would be removed as soon as we can. And in this case, circumstances have changed. Case counts are declining. Also, the science has changed. We know that vaccines protect very well against Omicron, which is the dominant variant. Everyone 5 and older have widespread access to vaccines. And we also know about one-way masking, the idea that even if other people around you are not wearing masks, if you wear a high quality mask, that also protects you, the wearer, too. And so in this case, I'm not saying, I don't think anyone really is saying that no one should ever wear masks, but rather that the responsibility should shift from a government mandate imposed from the state or the local district or the school. Rather, it should shift to an individual responsibility by the family, who can still decide that their child can wear a mask if needed.
Take New Jersey, the case in New Jersey, for instance. Their new case average is just over 4,000. Is that an acceptable number to do this, or are they projecting out to March 7th at this point?
I don't think we should be looking at case counts at all at this point, especially when we're dealing with a milder variant and when so many people were exposed to Omicron and therefore have at least some level of protection either through vaccination or immunity. The key number that we should be looking at is hospitalizations. If our ICUs and hospitals in that particular region are not overwhelmed, if they're not over capacity, we can set a number, for example, 75% or 80% full, then we should be able to relax all restrictions. And I actually believe that we should be starting to, with the first restriction removed, should actually be the restriction on children. Because while for adults, you could say, well, what's the harm of adults masking when they go into a grocery store? There actually is a harm that we should be discussing of children continuing to mask. That doesn't mean that masking doesn't have its place for children when there are very high rates of hospitalization. If we get a new variant in the future that children are particularly susceptible to, we may want to bring masks back. But we should also be intellectually honest and say that masking has had a cost, especially for the youngest learners, people with English as a second language, children with learning disabilities. There has been a cost to them. So the risk-benefit calculation has really changed.
Intellectually honest. This is what the premier doctor, scientists, epidemiologists, virologists, like I said, I don't know what this woman's background is, for CNN now after 2 years, going into 3 years, and we knew maybe within the first 6 months that masks didn't do anything. So now all of a sudden, let's go away and do away with masks, especially with children. I honestly don't even know where to even go with that one. It's just very frustrating, very frustrating. Let's go ahead and get into this next clip. This is Bill Maher, and for a lot of us out here on the right, we have been very surprised with the red pilling, if you want to call it. But this frankness from Bill Maher, we know he's far left, but he has made some sense on a lot of stuff, especially in regards to COVID.
It's time to do what a growing list of countries have done and announced we're going back to something more like normal, beginning with recognizing that what we're doing to kids is unnecessary and horrible, and I don't even like kids. But making kids who have a COVID survivability rate of 99.98% mask up like bandits, unfortunately, the thing that's getting stolen is their education, their sanity, and their social skills. A study this week from a professor at Johns Hopkins concluded that the lockdowns we all suffered through had little impact in reducing COVID deaths. Okay, that's kind of a big one to get wrong. Last July, President Biden said, you're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations. Well, I already knew that was wrong then, and now we all do. The former director of the CDC, Robert Redfield, believes COVID originated in a lab, and now our intelligence agencies agree it might have. But for months on social media, it was banned to even discuss it. Look, I'm not saying the medical establishment isn't trying to figure shit out or that they're corrupt, although there is some of that. But how about just wrong? Wrong a lot. Wrong about HIV, wrong about lockdowns, wrong about kids, wrong about how you couldn't get it if you were vaccinated. Remember washing our packages? And there's never been any research showing that outdoor transmission is likely or common, yet LA County says we're still supposed to mask up for big outdoor events, like we'll be at the Super Bowl. Well, supposed to. It's all theater, watching athletes mix it up on the court and then mask on the sideline, not being able to touch a menu, but watching them touch my food. Maskless at dinner while sitting but not standing. And by the way, if Applebee's really cared about our health, they would make us cover our mouths after the food arrived. I'm just asking, how much wrong do you get to be while still holding the default setting for people who represent the science.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I can't even expound on that one. Bill Maher, who we know for us on the right, it's extremely far left, he nailed it. Every aspect of what he just said, he nailed. So there really isn't anything else to speak on that one. That's just a lot of common sense, even though, like I said, we were all unaware, did not have any knowledge, the knowledge that we have now back then, those first 6 months. And I'm just guesstimating 6 months. It could have been earlier than that. But I think within that first 6 months, most of us out here got a grasp as to what this virus was and what it did and who it affected. And nothing was done about it. The elderly basically made to fend for themselves. You know, those with comorbidities made to fend for themselves. And there wasn't a concentrated effort to get those people ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and monoclonal antibodies, which was out at the beginning of this pandemic, ladies and gentlemen. But no one talked about it. I guess you live and you learn, and unfortunately, hundreds of thousands of people have unfortunately succumbed to this virus. And I am no conspiracy theorist. I just would like to know the numbers, the actual, real, factual numbers as to who actually died with COVID or who died because of COVID. I still would like to know that number. And many of us out here would like to know that number. Let's go ahead and get to this next clip. And this is just almost this whole entire segment tonight is almost all about COVID because, you know, there are other things that I'm going to talk about on this show. But tonight, it just so happens these clips that I've pulled together is about COVID. Well, this one, ladies and gentlemen, I believe I'm clicking on the right one here. Midtown NYC at an AMC movie theater. I guess 20 or so anti-vax, anti-mandate individuals walked in with no masks, and cops showed up, and of course they arrested them.
They're arresting press for doing their jobs. Believe that? It's crazy. They're arresting press that they know I'm press for doing my job. With no warning. They said I can stay before.
Right here, baby. Hold the f***ing line, baby. I told you. Hold the line, baby. Hold the line. Look at him. My choice. The vaccine you won't force. My body, my choice. The vaccine you won't force. My body, my choice. The vaccine you won't force. My body, my choice. The vaccine you won't force. My body, my choice.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Citizens of New York City have just about had it up to here for many weeks, months, going on years now. And like I said, with all of the data that's come out now and these studies from Johns Hopkins and the left stream media and those who espouse to be advocates for us just continue to just toe this line, and they're going to hang on to this, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to hang on to COVID for as long as they can, because we gave up our rights like it was nothing. Now, like I said, at the beginning of it, first 6 months, yeah, maybe, okay, let's so-called follow the so-called experts in this, and maybe things will get better. But as the restrictions continued, nothing changed. Actually, numbers increased. And then when the COVID jabs came out, nothing changed. People still kept getting sick. Then when these variants like the Delta came out, numbers didn't change, even with all the same restrictions in place, even with the so-called vaccine, aka COVID jabs. And now we all know, I don't think I've heard former Vice President Joe Biden say that this is the pandemic of the unvaccinated. I think someone finally in their camp said, you know what? We can't say that anymore because it's not true. Hasn't been true. Never was true. And I want to talk about paradigms and just complete differing in anyone's, I guess, if you want to call it, stances on things. And let's look at it from two different angles here. Let's look at how when someone, and I'm just gonna kind of just don't want to bring Joe Rogan into this conversation because everything is going to fall into place in regards to that. And for those who are trying to cancel him because he said the N-word in the years past, well, Howard Stern should be canceled if that's the case. But seeing that he's, pro-vax and mandates and all that, you're not going to touch him. And I'm just thinking to myself, no one had an issue with Joe Rogan until he brought on doctors talking about COVID and the COVID shot. There was no one who had this animosity and disdain for Joe Rogan until he brought on those doctors talking about, and especially those two in particular, those two doctors, who one of them who developed the mRNA technology for these jabs that are out now. Now, some of the stuff I'm like thinking to myself, okay, yeah, it might be a stretch, but most of the stuff that they're talking about to me is factual, and they just can't take it because it just shatters the narrative that has been plastered on your screens and in social media for the last 2 years. So, of course, they're going to push back on that, push back on Joe Rogan. And like I said, in Joe Rogan's case, in this whole N-word controversy, there's been several. Now, like I said, I included Howard Stern. There's a few others that I can't think of right now that have, in particular, let's talk about former Vice President Joe Biden and the times he used the ER at the end with just no disregard for anyone. But no one's talking about that. No one wants to bring that. It's okay. He gets a pass. But Joe Rogan doesn't. And what's the difference? Because once again, until Joe Rogan had those doctors on talking about COVID, no one had an issue with Joe Rogan. COVID is now this red herring, and it's just, it's unfortunate. We've been led down a path for these last 2 years, and Fauci is at the top of the list of giving and leading us with misinformation. There's no humility in regards to Fauci and anyone else who has come out and said things about COVID that has been proven false. They don't want to come out and say we were wrong. So what does that make those type of individuals? I know when I mess up and I say it. There is no pride in me that's going to allow me to not be humble and humble myself and say, hey, I screwed up. I messed up. I had that wrong. My bad. But for 2 years now, anything and everything in regards to COVID, if you've even attempted to say anything against the establishment, you were banned. You were canceled or whatever. And you got to be really, really, you had to be, now with everything that's coming out, even though they're still going to try and come at you with you still got to wear a mask, you got to get vaccinated, But with all the facts that we have now in regards to COVID, there's really not much these individuals can stretch. There's not much information that they can, try to finesse and make it seem like they're the experts when we all know, us out here who have a functioning brain and can read and can decipher the information that's given and look at actual studies, even though once again the left and mainstream media don't want to focus on, but the rest of us are. We can surmise what COVID is, what it's been, and what it's going to be. But like I said, the red herring, the elephant still in the room, is COVID. And even though some of these states like California and New Jersey and Washington State and all these states, that the main states that have been so restrictive are now setting dates or already put in place, pulling back the mask mandate band-aid, and you no longer have to wear masks. Now, it's a good thing that cases, and especially hospitalizations, have gone dramatically down. And this is basically how these pandemics normally run its course. And that, to me, we're in the endemic phase. We've been in the endemic phase, even with the emergence of the Omicron variant. Because we knew that a lot of people were going to get it, but not get that sick. And with that, now that it's basically swept around the United States, swept around the world, we are in that endemic phase. So why still with all the restrictions? Still not understanding that. And with the demonization and the demonizing, I think let's make sure I say that correctly, of the Freedom Convoy in Canada, and looks like we're trying to get one started here in the States, driving from the West Coast to DC. Facebook groups that were building, hundreds of thousands of members, Facebook gone, taken down. GoFundMe, the GoFundMe that had over $10 million in its coffers for the Freedom Convoy in Canada, whoop, gone. I don't understand how when individuals like Justin Trudeau, who anything that goes against what he is trying to accomplish and what his ideology is, everything is racist. He just said today that across the Canadian vast land of Canada, that wherever these protests are happening, that there's white supremacy, there's swastikas, there's all kinds of stuff in regards to racism and things of that nature, bigotry and all that stuff, that he just, everything, like I said, anything that doesn't go his way, that is the first and foremost avenue he takes, is racism. But yet this man has been caught in video and camera, as far as photography, in blackface. And yet he has been given a pass on those several occasions. Just think if someone on the right did that, ladies and gentlemen. It'd be like us trying to track down Frankenstein and lead him into town square. But, when the mainstream media across the world has its agenda, because if you look at it, I've said this before in the past, when you look at shows on TV as far as the news, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, paper outlets, no, not paper outlets, newspaper outlets, New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, you look at the stories and their lead-ins and what their talking points are, they are all the same. It seems as if every editorial newsroom across the states has a red button that they push, and they call each other at the same time, fax each other, email each other, Zoom each other what the talking point should be for today, because it's the same thing on each and every one of those outlets. So these people don't even have any credibility or creativity whatsoever because they're spouting the same thing. It's kind of sad to actually, if you think about it. It's because I know there's some individuals that are not as adamantly leftist as the editors of most of these outlets are. Some of these younger journalists and reporters want to give you the news straight up and down without any editorial or narrative placed on it. They just want to give you the news. But unfortunately, when you have directors of news across the country with their leftist ideology, they will get shot down. These individuals who want to just give you it straight up and down with no spin get shot down. And I know there's a lot of them out there that have had it. A lot of people are actually leaving these outlets like New York Times and the Washington Post and starting to do their own thing on Substack and things of that nature. And good for them. I'm glad that they, kind of grew a spine and a backbone and said, you know what? I'm not going to compromise who I am just because you want to continue down this path. This path of trying to destroy this country, in my opinion. A lot of this stuff is not left or right. It's good and evil, point blank. And a lot of these individuals choose to not choose the path of righteousness, the path that God would want us to take, the path that the Holy Spirit is tapping on our hearts and is saying, hey, go this way, do this. But they refuse. They have allowed themselves to go down that path. And unfortunately, a lot of them are lost. But all it takes is a kneeling of the knee and asking God to come into their lives and intervene and allow God to infiltrate their lives and let Him lead them where they need to go. Once again, I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. And for those who are checking me out on the live streams, Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter, added Twitter tonight. Just want to thank you. And as I always say at the end of these episodes, may God continue to bless you and yours. May He keep you and your family safe. Until next time, God bless you and yours. Peace.